Everyone, and welcome to another episode of Radiant Central, and I'm your host Natasha St. Michael, and thank you so much for joining me. So the other day someone sent me an email asking me what my opinion was of flour. Do I consider flour to be part of a healthy diet, or do I consider flour to be a refined, processed ingredient or food that should be eliminated from a healthy diet? Great question. I'm assuming that this person does not have a gluten allergy or sensitivity, and anyone watching this video, if you have a gluten allergy or sensitivity, then you should be eliminating all flours that contain gluten. Okay, so that aside, what do I think of flour? And when I'm referring to flour, I'm referring to all flour. So it's not only wheat flour, but also spelt flour or rice flour or buckwheat flour, all flours. Okay, what do I think of them? Personally, I don't believe any flour, even if it's made out of whole grains, I don't believe any flour is a health food. Okay, if I were to be comparing the whole grain compared to the flour, the whole grain is what contains all the nutrition, all the good stuff. The flour is a processed food, no matter what it's made out of. If you were to compare like a bowl of buckwheat groats compared to a bowl of buckwheat flour, obviously the buckwheat groats have the nutrition, way more of it in it than the flour does. Okay, so that being said, when I talk about a healthy diet and pursuing eating a healthy diet, what I'm saying is focus on the healthy whole foods. The foods that what you see is what you get. So it's the whole grains, or be the fruit and vegetables, the nuts and seeds, the beans, legumes, pulses, or if you eat meat, it's the meat or the fish, the seafood, the eggs. When you look at the food, you know what it's made out of. What you see is what you get. And for things that are processed, like the flours or other things that are processed and refined, even though it's made out of whole food, those things should be kept to a minimum or eliminated, depending on what your health is like, depending what your health goals are, and also where you're at with your health journey. If you're just starting out, then I'd say don't worry so much about the whole grain flours and focus more on just eating healthy foods and getting rid of the foods that contain the trans fats or hydrogenated oils or the high fructose corn syrup. Like get rid of like the fast food and the processed food or the ready-made meals or ready-made food products. I would say concentrate on that and don't worry so much about the whole grain flours. Later on work on that. But if someone were to come up to me that is trying to either reverse a health condition or trying to lose weight, then I would say, you know what, on top of getting rid of all the junk food, I would try and eliminate or minimize those flour-based food products. So it really depends where you're at. And let's say someone is super healthy and they really want to just take their healthy diet, like to the highest level, then I'd say, yeah. You don't need to be eating foods that are made out of flour, even if it's made out of whole grain flour. You don't need it. And if you do crave the starchy stuff, go with the actual food. Go with the whole grain. Eat the buckwheat as is. Eat the quinoa as is. Eat even wheat berries. Sprout them and put them in a salad. Have that as opposed to having foods made out of flour. Huge, huge difference. And then you do get your starchy fix. And it can actually have a better impact on your waistline and on your health. And on feeling full. Okay, that's a big one because I find if people sort of eat a lot of foods that are made out of flours, even if it's made out of the whole grain flour, they don't get full so easily as they would if they actually ate the whole grains as is. So big difference between the two. But it really depends where you're at on your health journey. And when it comes down to these whole grain flours, I say they're kind of in the middle. You want to first get rid of the junk food, the fast food, the super processed food. And then later on, start cutting back on those whole grain flours. And at the same time, most of all, focus on getting as much nutritious and fresh, healthy foods into your diet as possible. A lot of times I find if someone really wants to be victorious on their diet and really do it, focus on what you're eating as opposed to what you have to cut out. Because a lot of times too, I see it a lot when people say, okay, I'm cutting all that out, I'm never eating it again. Next thing you know, 2 weeks later, they binge on it. And it's just because they're telling themselves every day they're not allowed to have it. But if they just focus on the foods that they can have and getting those foods in as much as possible, then less and less they want the processed, refined stuff. It's because they're not thinking about that so much. They're thinking about what can they put in, what are they allowed to have. So find what works for you. And remember too that this is a journey, and it's not that everything needs to be changed overnight, but you have to go at a pace that feels good for you and comfortable for you, and that every meal that you make, you enjoy. And I have to also say, and too, is that once in a while having something that's made out of a flour, whether it's a whole grain flour or not, it's not the end of the world. And I'd have to say too that if you're gonna have it, go for the high quality stuff. It's like if someone needs to have a cookie, make homemade cookies out of ingredients that you have control over, that you can buy the highest quality ingredients and use that in making those cookies, as opposed to going to a grocery store and picking up that box of cookies that's made out of the white flour, that's made out of hydrogenated oils and shortenings and high fructose corn syrup and chemicals and preservatives and flavor enhancers and food coloring, and it's not even a food, it's a product. It's a food product, it's not a real food. It's a huge difference between having like the homemade stuff and having the factory made stuff. Same things with the breads. You know, it's if you get a good quality bread that's made from a bakery that really uses the highest quality ingredients, that's a huge difference than getting something that comes out of a factory that's like Wonder Bread. You know, that's like, you don't even know what it's made out of. It's not even made out of flour. And it's the same thing too with the pasta. Go to a deli, like an Italian deli that makes fresh pasta. Big difference than getting the stuff that's like in the package that was made like 5 years ago and is just heavily preserved. Huge difference. So it's things like that. It's like, how can you eat the highest quality, the freshest food possible and enjoy it. Enjoy every step of it. All right, so I'm wishing you guys a fabulous day, and I'll see you again soon.